Well, man, guys, I love that we just even get together and talk about this. Love that all of us love Creighton, and as former players there, as student athletes, a place that we love, helped us all get to where we are today in different ways. Coach Mack obviously made some comments and talked about his team being all in, used the word plantation. There's been reactions. And I think for all of us as people who love Creighton, but number two, people who love and are for justice and racial justice. And we've all been a part of some of the conversations that have happened on Creighton's campus. And so just would love to just take some time and hear some perspective, and just starting with what Coach Mack said. And I don't know how you guys found out, but would love to just know, what were your reactions when you found out what he said, maybe even how you found out, but what were your initial reactions?
I'll jump in first. To tell you the complete truth, when I first saw it, I was like, okay. Then I read what he said, because when I first saw, I think it was like, oh, he made some, racially charged comments. And I was like, what the heck did he say? That could be anything. That could be a million different phrases or words or whatever. So then when I read his actual quote, I was just confused. Like, I've never heard, I guess an analogy for unity ever be used like that, or never heard the word plantation be used in that regard. Like, So I was just confused. I was like, are they sure that's what he said? Didn't make any sense. So I didn't even have room to be offended at the beginning. I was more confused than anything, which kind of kept me in a good state mentally, because then I was like, what was he even trying to say? Right. Like, what was he trying to say, and what, and everything else. Then once I deciphered what he was trying to say, I was like, well, obviously that was a dumb choice of words, right? Like, that wasn't a smart way to say it. I was like, but it doesn't, it didn't give me that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, get rid of this guy, or, oh, he's, somebody that, doesn't belong here, or
right.
is racist, or, that wasn't my initial thought. Maybe that's because of my perspective of actually knowing who he is.
Right.
What I've seen him do and say and be, the man I've seen him be over the past, 10 plus years. But like I said, it wasn't my initial reaction was not to just initially get offended. I was just confused and just thought it was a really weird choice of words.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that. When people started texting me and I kind of found out about it, I was just kind of had to go back and reread it a couple of times, because it just didn't fully make sense. And then people start, asking perspective. And I mean, Kyle, what'd you think?
Yeah, so I found out about it. Someone sent me an ESPN article, and I read it, and I think, like you said, I wasn't quite sure what he was trying to get across in the beginning, but I think my first thought that I'm thinking about from a white man's perspective here is just that, in looking at my own story, just because you think you've tried to be kind, and you've tried to be a good person, and you've tried to be for people, naturally no one wants to claim that they are racist in any way, right? Like, none of us want to believe that about ourselves. But this just goes to show how deep this goes. Right? I think we've all watched Coach Mack over the last month of years. He's put his time, he's put his money, he's put his network to work with organizations like Abide. He's been in North Omaha with his 2 feet doing work. I think, you would say he's been trying to be a part of solutions for a while, not just in this last year.
Yeah.
And so when you watch that happen, but then language like this slips out of your mouth, which is what happened for him, right? It slipped. It just goes to show how deep this problem goes in our society. And as white Americans, especially for me as a white man, it's, I think I was just like, oh man, that could have easily been me somehow. right?
Yeah.
There's all these blind spots that I have in my own head that I'm just not aware of all the time. And maybe, man, you want to think you're not ever going to use certain types of language. You're not ever going to mess up or slip up. But these things can very easily happen. And so, I think my thoughts were like, this is why, even if, in whatever circles you're in, or whatever part of the country you're in, you don't feel like, race is that big of a problem for you or your environment. This is why you need to do your own work when you're not forced to. Right. Do your work now when you're not forced to. So otherwise these stories come up, and this is how you have to learn.
Right.
Because the country is moving. Right. We are progressing. And so how are we going to choose to learn our lessons? And so this is why it's just important. It's like, oh man, like I'm looking at myself, right? Like if you want to be someone who's, leading any way in this world right now, like your words matter, and the words come from whatever's inside of here. And I think it's a reminder, unfortunately, that we all have to, be aware and keep on learning and keep on listening. And, because these things, it's a hard story.
Yeah. It's so hard because it's like, people, start texting, hey, I become aware of it. And then number two, they're like, what do you think? What should happen? It's like everybody wanted to respond so quickly and wanted sound bites. And you see Twitter and you see all the responses. And for me, I remember the first response I sent somebody in a text message, and at the end of the response, I was like, man, that's the best response I can give at this point, trying to think about it holistically. But I started to recognize that I couldn't even respond with just like a simple message or a sound bite, because the story was so much bigger. And on one side, like you said, Kyle, on one side, knowing Coach Mac, knowing what he's done, knowing what I believe his intentions and his heart is when it comes to this conversation as a whole. I mean, I remember at Creighton having these conversations, and he was right there in the front and one of the first ones to engage in conversation afterwards. Like I see that. I see my dad's story as a white guy and the stuff he said over the years, whether it was to my mom or the Black community, and how far he's gone. But then I also agree, Kyle, with what you just said, is like for a Black person, you would never slip up saying that. Like it's just not happening, because that language is attached to a history, to a reality, to emotions. And so I recognize, like in this scenario, two things were true. A, I think Coach Mac has great intentions and has a great heart. But B, there's still a gap. And I think for so many in our world, we tend to just lean on one side or the other. And I think I came to the place, I was like, man, two things are true in this situation. And I think even knowing that and being okay with that says, man, I can have great intentions, but I can still grow and learn. And I can still maybe not have the full paradigm or full perspective on what's going on. I mean, as you guys took in the information, as you're talking to people, as you started to process it, like how did you process it, and what did you start communicating to other people that you talked to?
Go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
I mean, a few things. I think, first, when these stories tend to happen, the knee-jerk reaction is like, how do we get things back to the way they used to be? Like we got to get back to normal. We got to just, get through this. And I think, the biggest mistake, and people were texting me, wanted, me to say something, or I don't know, but like the absolute worst thing that could happen in this moment is for white men to come in and fix the problem and go back to normal. That is like the worst thing that can happen. We have to sit in the story and not need a quick fix. Right. And I know there's questions that have to be answered. Is he gonna coach? What do the players feel? And I think that's, what got lost in a bit of this is that, what do the players feel? If anyone should be having a real say on what should be happening, we should be asking the players. And I think something that part that has been missed as well in this because of the word plantation is there's people who would look at college sports and draw this type of analogy, right? Where like there's a bunch of money being made. Athletes are driving the money that's coming in, but they're not getting the dollars in return. They're getting education and a scholarship. They're not getting the dollars. And so just, I think, walking people through that analogy and say, hey, this goes much deeper than just, plantation's a weird word that no one really says anymore. But this is what it means. And this is what it looks like today for some people. We need to tie that together.
Yeah.
And then when you see that, you can take the player's perspective in this and really ask them what they think. And I would just say that I think I think this is a really mature group from what I know. I don't know them all real well. I've only watched them, but there's a lot of poise in that locker room. I think they've been very thoughtful. I think I applaud Creighton for giving them the space to be able to speak and to speak what they feel, to make videos, to make statements together as a team. I think they've done a great job in that. But this is not something that you just swoop in and fix and go back to normal. This is how we learn.
Yeah.
People who aren't as far along on this journey, this is how we learn. We sit in these moments, and you let your heart break, or you're convicted, or whatever it looks like for you on your journey. Like, this is where the work starts to happen. And so, when it comes to solutions, we want to jump to solutions really quickly. I think we need to understand it's a very privileged way of thinking. We'll go right to solutions right away. That's what you're used to. Like, oh, it's a problem, let's fix it. Well, that hasn't worked in this story, right? You don't just fix this. And so just allowing this to play out and allowing people to express themselves and to allow everyone's voice to matter in this is to me the work right now. And it's not for us to decide right, what should happen.
Just a quick, I'll go ahead, Anthony.
No, I was just going to piggyback on that, like just the thought process of time, right? Like, like Kyle said, there's just so many different things. This isn't just a white male issue. It's something that I would say most males deal with is we're solution based, right? When our wives come to us with a problem, what do? We try to try to fix it. Which half the time they don't want a solution, right? Half the time they don't want us to fix it. Actually, they want us to listen, right? And so I think that's where what Kyle's saying makes just so much sense. And it's like, in this case, what would be the solution? What would be the easy way out? And I told Bruce this,
right,
face to face, or not face to face, but when we were talking, I said, what would be the easy way out, Bruce? It'd be to fire him. That'd be the easy way out. Like, just fire him and get rid of him and, try to, do damage control, bring somebody else in and, try to fix it. Right. So, or you can use it as an opportunity to, for have it be a learning experience, not only for him, but for every white coach in America. Because he was like, oh man, this could be a great learning tool for our coaches at Creighton. I said, no. It's gonna be a learning tool for every single coach in America, right. And not just in college, high school. Basically, any coach that is coaching predominantly Black kids or people, this is a great learning experience, right? So don't lose it. Like, don't lose this opportunity to have some interesting conversations. I mean, we all know over this past year, there's been more conversations on racial, injustices and all kinds of different things that, conversations would happen here and there randomly. But what happened, right? Like, events happened and conversations got started, and it really turned into actions, right? Actions have been taken over the past, 16, 18 months that just weren't happening before. And why? It's because what Kyle was talking about is conversations were had, convictions were had, and then action took place. So to me, it's the same thing here. It's like, once again, it's, like I said, I'm really, really hard to offend. So I'm not like your average person in today's society. I'm not somebody who just, like I said, jumps to that side of things always. But I call a spade, right? Like Kyle said, this is deeper than just he used a word, and it's like, well, man, like that. There's a lot of different words that could be used, and it wouldn't be nearly as like as it wouldn't sting nearly as much as plantation because of the current system of the NCAA, right? How it's set up and how, when you talk about, putting in work, getting equal value back for your work, it's like, well, it's kind of what a plantation was. Like, there's a lot of work that was done and very little value brought back, right? So, even taking it there, it's just like, okay, well, obviously shouldn't be saying that word, shouldn't be using that as an analogy, but just as you're a coach in this environment, in this space, especially white coaches, I mean, just continuously doing, an analysis of your heart, an analysis of your biases. I think is something that is a really healthy thing to do, is making sure that hey, like, no, I'm sure he didn't wake up that morning thinking, man, I hope I don't say plantation today. You know what I'm saying? But it's just a constant thing. Like, there's a lot of deeply rooted things that are in our brains, and it's not just in white people's brains. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is like, there's a lot, Black people have a lot of black biases, anti-Black biases in us, right? Which leads to a lot of self-hate, which leads to a lot of horrible decisions, right? So it's way deeper, guys, than the surface level words. And plantation, that word means nothing to me by itself. But when you put it in context and you put it in certain contexts, that's whenever it can be, something that can be really, really hateful and really, powerful in a negative way. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I love how both of you guys talked about just kind of feeling and sitting in the moment and recognizing. And there's something in all of us where we have bias towards one thing or another. And I think really feeling that. I want to kind of ask Kyle a follow-up question to what you shared earlier, because I've heard debates on how much responsibility should the players have in terms of decisions that are being made. Like, how much should they be listening and leaning into what the players are saying versus, as quote unquote adults, be making the decisions. I don't know if you guys have heard people talk about that at all. You obviously, Kyle, too, were in a position where as players, you guys made certain decisions, obviously at the NBA level. But what would you say, like, to people who are saying, oh, like, that shouldn't be something that should be put on the players to make decisions or to really be the ones kind of leading and guiding this conversation or the decisions that are being made?
Well, first, the players should absolutely 100% have a voice in this, right? They're the ones who were offended. They're the ones who were in the locker room. To say that they don't have a voice because they're younger is wrong. They should 100% have a voice. Now, if there's a leadership team who's making choices, I understand, like Creighton is run by the leaders of Creighton. I think this is when we talk about diversity and leadership, this is why it matters. This is when it matters. Because if you only have white voices trying to figure out how to fix this problem, I think we're probably going to miss, and we're probably going to do more damage. And so, like I said, I don't know who exactly is making all the decisions for Creighton. Hopefully there are voices, there are diverse voices. And if there's not diverse voices in the circle already, they're seeking them out. That is so important. But players should have a voice 100%. And from what I've gathered, I feel like they have had that voice, and the voices have been being listened to. I hope that's really the case. But yeah, and this goes back to just the I think people kind of fight all the diversity talk, and the best person who should have the job should have the job, and it's not fair in whatever way. Like, you're not going to be able to navigate these types of stories well if you don't have diverse thinking and diverse voices inside your leadership teams. And this is our reality in America.
Right.
And so if you're not there already, you better be on your way. Because it's right. It's the right thing to do. And two, it's going to make you better. And that's what I think a lot of people don't fully understand yet, is like, this makes you when you're better able to relate to more people, to more stories. It makes you better. And so hopefully this is another lesson that we learned, why this is so important.
It's good. Would you add anything to that, Anthony, about the players and just their role in this?
I mean, he summed it up pretty well. I mean, I think that the players should absolutely have a voice and have the ability to kind of give their thoughts and their voices to the process. And he hit the nail on the head when it comes to diversity in leadership. Like I said, we all have inherent biases, no matter who you are, what color you are. But of course, if you all look exactly the same and you are in, a group of leadership and everybody in that room looks exactly the same, it's going to be really hard to deal with things that are, in regards to people who don't look like you, like just straight up, like it's just not even a question, right? Where it's going to be really hard for them to deal with matters of anything to do with race or whatever it may be, and diversity of the different situations. It's just really hard because, not to say that every single white person, every single black person thinks exactly the same. That's not what we're saying. Right. But there are certain levels of understanding and empathy that goes along with who you are and what you look like, and, so having those different, like Kyle said, if there aren't, different people in that, leadership group that are making these decisions, hopefully they're seeking out those people, from campus or from whoever, right? Like there's plenty of capable people that can come in and be a sounding board for them, in that regards. But I think that also, like Kyle said, if you look around your leadership team and you all look exactly the same, you probably should start looking at diversifying your group, because it's just going to allow your organization to deal with more things better, more efficiently, just better. Like just overall, just having that many more voices in the room and that many more ideas and thought processes is only going to make the leadership team better.
It's good. Yeah, it's not only the right thing to do. There's actually results that come from it. And I think statistically speaking, our world is going to be dominated by diversity by, I think, 2045. And over 50% of the population is going to be mixed race. And so it's just where our world is currently. It's where our world is moving. So there are some larger implications. Obviously, this story's made national headlines. And one of the responses I saw from a national sports analysis, Jalen Rose, just a little thing. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but he was kind of commenting on it. And he ended by kind of making this statement, like it was something to the degree that, Creighton, whatever you decide to do, like you can reinstate coach. But if you are a minority athlete, don't go to Creighton. That's kind of how he finished his statement. And number one, I saw recently that there was a player that decommitted from Creighton that is a minority athlete. But I had some feelings and perspective when I saw him make that statement. And part of it personally is because I think we live in such a culture where, we take something like what Coach Max said, and we make these decisions without understanding any context. And I had huge problem with what he said because of that. In my mind, he has no context of who Coach Mac is, of who the people are surrounding the organization, and I personally feel like we live in such a day and age where I do think responsibility has to be taken. I do think there has to be action. But I do have a problem when somebody makes a statement like that without, based on what I know, having any context with who the players are. I mean, again, I don't know if you heard that or not, but what would your reaction to something like that be?
We live in a cancel culture, right? That's what they're calling it, right? It's you make one bad mistake, you can have a crystal clear reputation for 50 years. You make one bad mistake, it's over. You're done, right? Like no forgiveness, no grace, no anything, right? And especially being Creighton University, which Creighton University is a Jesuit university, right? Like we're supposed to have values, have Christian values, right? What is one of the most fundamental things of being a Christian is learning to forgive people, right? So what would we look like if within 24 hours, which some people were calling for his head in 24 hours, oh, he's out. He's got to get out of there. Not now. Like we can't wait. There's no investigation. He said it. He's out. But that's our culture, and that's why being a Christian in many ways is countercultural. In today's society, it's like those things that we believe in a lot of times go against what this culture lives and what they believe, and that's just, hey, you make one mistake, you're out. And the person who's saying that probably made plenty of mistakes in their life. Not probably. They have. Everybody has, right? Like a lot of people just haven't got caught, right? So, but they're, the people who are the loudest, when they say, oh, get him out of here. Like, bro, like that doesn't even represent our university. Like, that's not even what we're about. Like, there's certain things that I feel like you say or you do, you should absolutely be fired for 100%. But this is not one of those things, not to me, right? And hey, former player, never played for Mac, right? Obviously a black man, right? So, like, I don't get it. I don't get that whole like just blanket, like you talked about Jalen, like just saying, oh, no black player should go there. Why? Like, yeah, because he made a mistake. Because no other coach in the history of the NCAA has ever said anything remotely like questionable, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, of course they have, and they should, if they do and they get caught, they pay for it and move on. Like, but now if there was a pattern here, this is a pattern of Coach Mac and our coaches in general at Creighton University not being disciplined for doing things in a racially insensitive way. 100%, I would be on the same page with Jalen. I would be right next to him and be like, black players don't go to Creighton. They don't take care of us, right? That's just, now, like I said, there are some other cases that have happened, regarding black players, at Creighton and stuff like that, which I'm not even I'm actually learning about them more now than I did when it happened.
Yeah.
So I can't even speak to those and like what happened and like should they have gotten suspended or should they have gotten the repercussions that they should have gotten. I can't speak to those because I don't really know about them enough. So, hey, that's a whole another conversation, and that's something else to discuss for sure. But like I said, all I can do is speak to this conversation and to this situation because that's what's in front of us. And to me, to say, oh, black players shouldn't go to Creighton, I think is like you said, without any context. And it's not like he referenced any other cases or anything else that happened at Creighton, right? Like he just said, oh, since he said plantation, black players shouldn't go to Creighton. I'm on the same page as you. It's just like, I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's the same, like I said, is this culture saying, anything you do bad, it's going to mean that's the end of your career. That's the end of your life. That's the end of whatever you hold dear. Like we should take it away. Like right. I'm not with that.
Yeah. Kyle, would you add anything?
Yeah. I think as much as I would love for certain people in the media world to be canceled, It's not right. And I don't believe in that. I believe in grace. That's hardwired in me. I've been forgiven of much, and I'm supposed to do that for other people. I believe that's what we're called to be, right? So all that being said, like, I think it's like, what do we want to be known as in life, right? And surely there's certain moments where you get to clearly define who you are, but you have to be walking things out over a long time to really be known as something. And I think, Creighton's gonna fight this for a while, right? It's not just gonna be Jalen that says this. And so the question to Creighton is, how is Creighton going to respond? How are we going to respond to this? How are we going to show that we are for minority students and athletes and faculty and leaders all the way through? We want you to come, we want you to grow, and then we want to see you go through to the next level and be the person you were created to be and live the life that we believe you can live, hopefully through years that you were shaped at Creighton.
Yeah.
Right? Did we help shape you in a good way? And these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves right now. Because I think, because we're from Creighton, we know so many good-hearted, awesome, amazing people at Creighton. But this is a narrative that Creighton's going to fight for a while.
Yeah.
And hopefully just let it push you further.
Right.
Let it help us be better, because there's room to grow. No matter how hard people have been trying, there is room to grow on lots of levels. We all have. If you've been alive in 2020, you see how all the places that we have to grow individually, as universities, as a society, like as a country, all of it. We have room to grow. And so this is the moment where you say, okay, how am I going to let this shape me for the better? And if you're willing to be shaped for the better, you 100% should not be canceled, because you can do great work. I have no doubt that Coach Mack he's going to grow from this. Creighton is going to grow from this. Creighton is going to, push themselves to be more helpful, to be more useful, to be a better resource because of this moment, right? And that's why Creighton should not be canceled. And that's why Coach McDermott should not be canceled, because we're going to be factors in Omaha going forward, right? But you got to be a factor going forward.
Right.
You have to let this shape you.
Right.
And that's a lot of looking inward and not just trying to show that you're not racist, not trying to show that I'm not a part of the problem.
Right.
It's saying, okay, I've been a part of this. I had blind spots. I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I see things better now. So I got to be better. I got to live with more empathy. I have to open my heart and my mind to different stories and different ways of thinking, even if it doesn't connect with me right in the beginning. I have to have an open mind and an open heart. And if that all comes from this, then this is going to end up being a good part of Creighton's story. But there's work to do. This is going to be attached to Coach Mack and to Creighton for a while, and we have to accept that and let that push us forward.
So good. Couldn't agree more. I think sometimes it's the challenges that we go through in life that help shape us the most. And there's kind of been the quick discipline that's taken place where he couldn't coach for a game and now he's back coaching. But ultimately, there has to be long-term strategy and action taken. I love the question you said, what are we going to be known for? And you're known for doing something consistently over a period of time. And I think in all of our lives, when something happens to us personally, we live with a level of conviction that we otherwise didn't have. And like we live with a level of purpose because of that personal connection we have to whatever it is, whether it's a sickness, whether it's a cause, like whatever it is, we go hard for that thing that we've personally had some sort of connection to. And I truly believe for Coach Mack, but also for Creighton, man, this is one of those things. There is a new level of awareness. There's a new level of conviction, of understanding that I truly believe can really propel him and Creighton forward to be a part of the solution, not just for the Creighton coaches, like you said, Anthony, but for the bigger, broader community, for the city of Omaha, for coaches all over the country and all over the nation. And I love what you said, Kyle, and even your conviction. Let's be a part of this. Let's allow this terrible situation to be used for good in some way. As we think about solutions, I mean, what are some things that come to your mind, Anthony? How can Creighton, how can we leverage this and really put some practical solutions moving forward?
Yeah, well, one of the first things that, that really annoy me when it comes to these situations is when people start doing things out of just like for PR purposes, right? It's disingenuous. It doesn't fit. It doesn't, to me, it's just, it's like community service. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you got caught and you didn't go to jail, but we'll just give you community service. And then once you get your 100 hours in, then you're free to go, right? Like, it's a consequence, but is that the answer? Is that really going to make him better or us better or the Creighton University better? I don't think so, right? But I think that if you want to continue to do things you were doing way before all that, and highlight those and continue to do those and do them more, that's more genuine, right? But also, I think that moving forward, I think it just has to be well thought out. Like you said, you have to take some time. These solutions aren't easy, and it's not overnight you're going to come up with the right plan. But, I think that just making sure, because this is not like I don't know how to describe it. It's not like an easy one. Like there's certain things I feel like would be easier to address. That makes sense. He used the word plantation and everything else. And it's like I said, some people found it highly offensive. Me personally, I didn't. I was, like I said, I was more confused than I was offended. So it's like, okay, where do you go from here? Do you send him to, word sensitivity classes? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard. Like, it's like he knows he did wrong. He said immediately, he was like, I should not have said that. I apologize, right? And immediately started calling, called parents, immediately knew I shouldn't have said that, right? But I think that just the more that he can be exposed to, different things outside of his own culture, right? The more, just as much as possible. Yeah. I think it just gives a wider array of perspective. I mean, we did after George Floyd and after Ahmaud Arbery and stuff, we did a thing called the Great Challenge, right? And Creighton actually, adopted it. And so, being able to do that type of stuff, like just digging in deeper, like I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me if he did some of the Great Challenge and, watch some of the movies and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm not saying that is the ultimate answer to go watch movies, but it's just like the more that you can, well round yourself on other people's perspectives, the more likely you're going to not put yourself in those situations, right? And not say certain things, because before you say that, your brain wouldn't even think that'd be an option. Like you said earlier, like the chances of a black person saying that are probably zero. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not going to happen, because we're like, I'm not about to talk about no plantations, like, especially with other black people, like, that's just not going to happen in any way, shape, or form. It's just not going to happen. But our perspectives and our what we know and what we've learned over the years is, different, right? So I think it's just continuously putting himself in a position, not only himself, but, I would say, shoot, all the coaches, right? Just put themselves in position to just learn and grow, right? And continue to understand other people's perspectives and other people's worldviews. I think that helps. That would help more, than just about anything else at this point.
Yeah, it's good. Kyle, what would you add, or what would you share?
What was the initial question again?
Just like solutions as we look towards the future. What are some next steps, some solutions, practical things that?
No, I think a lot about this. Like, if you're gonna lose some weight, you can go on a diet. You can lose a few pounds, but when the diet is over, the 30 days is over, you tend to just put it back on. If you want to be a healthy person, you got to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what this work is, right? You can't just like write a check or put in a couple service days or, you know what I mean? Like give some charity, and think that you're being part of the solution. Like if you really want to be a part of this work, it's a lifestyle that you have to find. And going back to what Anthony said, it's learning what's going in every day, right? Are you listening to voices? Are you around people? Like, are you intaking or taking in the news in a way that helps you in this space, helps you see with different eyes? Because I think once you do that, like once you truly do change that lifestyle and understand this is like, if you look at our country, in Omaha, in our country, like name an issue, right? Racism is connected to virtually everything in this country, right? We all need to care about this. We all need to be growing in this. We all need to be deepening our understandings and growing our empathy and reimagining so many different things, right? This is the work for us as we develop this new lifestyle. But this is the work. And then once you do have that, like you're just going to naturally see life differently and you're going to see your opportunities differently. And so I think, there's the short term, what's a punishment or what's a, and that whoever can decide that, that's not up to us. Right. But I think just going forward as, and that's as a basketball program, like, what does this look like for us as a university? What does this look like for us? Like, what does a daily life look like in our world? And how is it furthering this cause and these conversations and ultimately these solutions? But as you change your lifestyle, things happen and you see the opportunities and you step into them.
Good.
And you step into different relationships, and that's ultimately how this is going to turn, right? But there's a lot of layers.
Right.
There's a lot of layers.
Yeah, it's good. I love that. I love that you talked about lifestyle change. And I think that's for Coach Mac and for the university as a whole, for the athletic department. And when I think holistically, I kind of break it down into 3 areas. One would be what Anthony shared is there's this ongoing commitment to learning and to growing and to getting more perspective. Because the reality is we all only know what we know.
Yep.
And it's not a one-time. I mean, that's what I love about the Gray Challenge, Anthony. It's not just a one-time, hey, watch this show and let's go back and talk about it. It's this ongoing process of saying, you know what? I know that when I do life with people like me, I only get so much perspective. I've got to expose myself to other people. I've got to, and honestly, one of the best things now, there is so much access to resources out there that talk about Black history and the challenges and the realities and what that looks like today. And I'll tell you what, man, I've learned so much since this last summer, in the last year, because I've dug into it in a way that I hadn't in my history. And it wasn't taught to me in schools I went to. And so I think there's this ongoing commitment for Coach, for the university to say, you know what, this issue matters to our world, to our university. I got to make an ongoing commitment to learn. Number 2, I say is you got to make an ongoing commitment to stand. And you stand up, you stand with individuals, organizations who are on the front lines fighting for justice. You use your voice, your platform to elevate those individuals and to show and say, man, this is what we're for. You've got people to point to and walk with. And then number 3, I say there's an ongoing commitment to investing. There is an investment that has to take place. There is a redistribution of resources that have to take place, whether it's for those athletes in the university as they transition out. We've got to create more opportunities where we can make the types of investments that give the broader Black minority community the same opportunities that many others have. And I think thinking of it holistically, thinking through those different lenses says, you know what, over the course of time, if we do those things, we're going to be known for something different. Our university is going to be known for something different. If we continue to be intentional about putting minority leaders in positions of power and influence and really give them an ability to speak into what we're doing, man, they're going to bring something to the table that's going to allow us to attract and keep the type of players and students that we know that we want, that represent the broader community. Great opportunity. And I think, I really truly believe that Coach Mac and so many connected want to make those types of commitments as we move forward. Anything that, like, as we get ready to wrap this up, like any other closing thoughts that you'd want to share on this situation, whether it's for the Creighton community, the broader community? Obviously, this is an ongoing conversation, but is there anything you'd want to just share as we get ready to land?
I just think, being a Jesuit community, what the Jesuits have always been known as has been the leaders in service and the leaders in seeing those people who've been pushed to the margins, right? Like getting down and seeing who's been knocked down with their own two eyes and looking them and say, how can I help you? I'm with you. I'm right here with you. Right? That's what it is to be a Jesuit, right? So this is an opportunity to live that out and not just try to make it better and get back to the way things used to be. But it's just like, no, how do we like humble ourselves, right? Because we have to. We humble ourselves, say, yo, this is not just a Coach Mac thing, right? Like, how do we all get better in this? Like, how do we all bond together and do this better together? Hey, see that? Better together. And I just think this is what's wired in Creighton is to step into these types of situations. Like, we know how to do this. We should know how to do this, right? And so I'm just, like I said, I think that's what gives me hope for the future, is that as hard as this moment is, like, that this is a moment that we can build off of and grow from, that ultimately helps us to be better and helps us to be difference makers in Omaha.
It's good.
Yeah, if we don't take this opportunity to learn and grow, it'll be a wasted opportunity. And like I said, if we don't take this opportunity as a university, as alumni of the university, as current players of the university, to step in and step up and say, how can we help? Like, how can we make this right? How can we do better, right? Because there, obviously what we do on this call, it's not anything directly related to, Coach Mac's actions, right? We know that. He has to do his own stuff, right? He has to do his own soul searching, his own, research, his own education on different matters. But in these situations, I feel like this is the time where, Creighton needs to step up and come together and try to figure out ways to, like you said, not fix it immediately, because it's not an immediate fix,
right? But
put in systems and processes that allow Creighton to really step up and learn from the situation, and then become a solution as a whole. And that solution not being a one-time, hey, fire the coach or do this one thing and then we're back to normal, like Kyle said. But it's like, no, take this opportunity and say, let's become, step in these gaps and like you said, represent the Jesuit community like we should, as a community, as an organization, as a university, and step into the gap for people who, have been marginalized over the years. And, in this situation, obviously this was, kind of, I know he wasn't directly talking to African-American players. He was talking to the entire team. But obviously that word and those words have more of a sting to us than it does to them in that way, for good reason. And so now, like I said, just learning and growing from it as individuals, but then, hey, like, why not take this opportunity to give back, right? Why not take this opportunity to do something about it and be, just be who we're supposed to be, which is a serving university and serving other people.
So good. Couldn't agree more, my brothers. I mean, under the circumstances, I'm like, man, it's just good to be together. And I feel like your voices on this, I think, is so powerful, though, because you both are known as individuals, again, who love Creighton. But man, you're using your platforms, your life to seek justice, to be a part of the racial inequality that's prevalent all throughout our society. And so you guys taking the time to speak into this, I think is huge. And just appreciate you guys, appreciate all that you stand for. I believe that we're all going to grow stronger from this as individuals, as Creighton University, as the city of Omaha. And I'm excited ultimately to see a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, to see the changes that have happened because of this challenging time. So love you guys. We got to do this more often, hopefully under different circumstances, but appreciate you guys speaking into it.
Of course.
Appreciate you, brother.